Live now.
We are live. Hello, everybody. We are on day 3 of taking a stand for your brand. So day 1, my name is Barbara Bolton Schreiber. I'm the founder of Sisters Rockin' Courage. And this has just been so much fun to explore how to stand in our power on day 1, how to stand out for our purpose on day 2. That's a stand up for our purpose. And today we're going to stand out for our clients. And we're going to talk about it from an intuitive perspective, especially for those of us who are trauma survivors. That is one of their, shall we say, superpowers that we often find is we're much more intuitive as we go through life. We sense things, not just from listening, but from feeling, and I have goosebumps. So Jodi, I'm going to hand this over to you so you can talk a little bit more about the intuitive piece and introduce who you are and why we're here having this conversation.
Okay, so my name is Jodi Yauch, and I am an intuitive small business coach. I help women to become intuitive coaches and build a business that transforms lives. And we are having this conversation because standing out in your business, especially as a trauma survivor, can sometimes be scary. It can sometimes be difficult. And in my experience with working with intuitive and healer type of people over the years, I've learned that trauma is kind of runs deep in our community. And so I thought this would be an amazing fit for my community as well as your community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
We don't talk as much in our group about the intuitive part. And so that's why I'm just really grateful that you were able to come join, because it is something that we don't necessarily spend as much time in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So do you want me to just kind of go into what I was sort of feeling into last night?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of feeling into if we were to tie intuition to this concept of standing out for your clients, what would need to come through or show up for the people who come to today's event? And the first thing that came through was to know your value. And I'm like, okay, but what does that have to do with, standing out for your clients? So to know your value and what's unique about you and how you help people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a component that needs to be there. But when you tie the intuition piece to that, it's really about tapping in within to, whatever it is that you want to call it, your inner wisdom, the sacred, it lives within all of us. We all have it. We all have access to it. And tapping in and just asking powerful questions. So tapping in and asking the question, what is it? What is it that is unique about me and what I have to offer people, right?
Yeah.
So if you're on the call today, definitely be taking notes. And if you want like maybe some short guided meditations in these, you can reach out to me, friend me on Facebook, and I can give you access to that. But yeah, so that's the first one, is knowing your value. And tapping in to ask if you're not clear. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So also when you were saying about if you have any questions about this, do put anything in the comments, and then we'll try to respond to this. When you're talking about knowing your value, Jodi, one of the things I know with working with trauma survivors is so many of us are recovering people pleasers. So when you're talking about knowing your value, I know when I'm working with women, it can be a real struggle to say, oh, I know what my purpose is. And when they go to what their purpose is, it's very task oriented. Well, my purpose is to do this and to finish this and to make sure this happens. And because we're great at multitasking.
Yeah.
So what's that step to get them from knowing their purpose? Like, how do you approach that? Because I know how we work through it. The difference from knowing your task oriented purpose versus your true value.
I would say it's coming to that with a sense of presence, right? Coming to it with presence and really having a balance between the two. So one of the things that I teach in my program is that there is being and there is doing. And then there's the centerpiece of having both of those in a cohesive balance, right? And it doesn't always look like they're walking hand in hand. Sometimes it looks like I'm going to spend a lot of time over here in the being before I jump over here and really start the doing. But it's bringing both of those components in and really just being present with the task list, so to speak, but also being present with which tasks are really going to move the needle in your business, right? Which tasks are really going to move the needle towards the service that you're here to provide. And when I say service, I mean service in a sacred way, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we talk about that as depending on what your background is, even like a ministry, what your mission is. There's so many different ways that you can talk about that meaningful service that you can contribute to the world and make it a better place.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So your first step to that in terms of like tapping into intuition for that would just be to, I would say, connect with your breath, right?
Yes.
And ask a powerful question. And if you can't think of a powerful question to ask within, what should the question be?
Oh, that's beautiful. What should the question be?
Because your answers are always within you. Yes.
Yes. That's beautiful. Because so often when you're, I will speak from my experience, where when I'm in a difficult place, it's really difficult to ask that greater question. And so to give yourself the space to allow, and we know this too, from when you're mentally trying to come up with a question and you allow that space to happen. You can be going for a walk, you can be in the shower, you can be sleeping overnight. When you wake up in the morning, there tends to be an awareness that arises. I'm still trying to figure out how to put a note board in the shower.
I love that.
So many ideas come in the shower and I'm like, okay, pen and paper, that's not working there. But yeah, so giving yourself the space to know that. I was listening to another talk last night where everything will show up for you in the perfect place and time.
Yes. And I love that you bring allow into that. So breathe, ask, allow, trust, act, right?
Oh, yes.
And it's an ongoing loop, right?
Oh my goodness.
Always
Yes.
take it back to the breath. So if in anywhere along that path you get stuck, you take it back to the breath, you ask again, you allow, trust, act, right?
Yes.
So, yes, perfect. So that's step number one, knowing your value, right? Because how can you offer your value if you don't know yourself and know your value and what it is that you're offering?
And everybody has a greater value.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Yes.
Always. Yes. And often that value can be what would you say? I want to say byproduct, but that's not the right word. I would say maybe a golden ticket that you've received
I like that.
on your life's journey, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The golden ticket.
Golden ticket or a golden fruit that you receive that then you can turn around and feed the world with. And in that, always make sure to include yourself. I always tell my clients, include the you, the me, and the all is important.
Love that.
Yeah. So step number 2 that came through was to then, once you know yourself and you know your own value, you have to know your client. Right. And so you can use your imagination if you want to bring this back to intuition and tapping in. You can just simply see it as something as simple as using your imagination to tap into your ideal client's energy field or into just imagine that you're in the shoes of your ideal client and then discern what can I offer. So again, we're doing the same process. Breathe, right? Breathe, ask, allow, trust, and act. And you can literally take that as a template and lay it over anything in life, anything. If you're in an argument with someone, if you're, whatever, you're always taking it back to your inner wisdom. So you would imagine yourself in the shoes of your clients, and then just simply ask the question, what can I offer that would provide the most value to the clients who need me right now? Right. So it's again, bringing it from a place of service with a sacredness to it, and from a place of wisdom.
Wisdom. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I will say, as somebody who is now over 50, that I said that quietly, that
would never know.
I was listening to somebody talk earlier this week, and they were saying about how we need to actually have a relationship with ourselves.
Yes.
And that seems to be so basic, but we spend for me personally, I spent so much time doing and serving for others that to be in relationship with self was a completely foreign and uncomfortable
Mm.
invitation, basically, until recently. So there's this whole piece where when you're talking about it's a knowingness, an inner knowing of who you are. And then I love how you talk about take that template and move it over, because it's also getting to know the people that you are to serve.
Yes.
One
Yes.
of my heroes is, I don't know if that's the right word, but role models is Mother Teresa.
Mm.
She knew who she was. She knew what she was put here to do, and she got to know intimately the people that she was here to serve.
Yes. Yes. And she also, I would almost be willing to bet, got to know intimately herself as well.
Yeah.
Right? It goes back to that. You, me, all. How can you know who it is that you want to serve or who it is that you're here to serve if you don't know yourself?
Right. But so often we jump ahead. We're like, I have things to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and let me pull your story into this, because you have an IT background.
I do.
And so one might think that that should be what you spend the rest of your life doing. How does one go from IT to intuition? Right?
Or how does one go from intuition to IT? Yeah,
Valid
because
question.
that's really actually what landed me in IT. I became a single mother. I wasn't getting child support, and now I got to be the breadwinner and bring home the bacon. And I'm like, what is it that it was that same process. Breathe, ask within. What is it that I can do right now that I have the most experience at that's going to feed my baby, that's going to put food on the table and bring in the most bread? That's all I was looking for at that moment in a survival space, right?
Sure.
And it was computing. It's like, okay, I have experience in computers. Like, it never would have been like a life purpose thing that I chose, right?
Mhm.
But it was a survival skill and a survival tool that I had in my journey, which helps in business today. So it's all divine.
Right.
But yeah, so that's how I got there, was the intuition that led me to the computing. And then that led me back out as well.
Yes, and thankfully, yeah. But that's
Yeah.
an inner knowing and trusting.
Trusting. Yes.
Mhm.
That's that trust piece. Breathe, ask, allow, trust, act. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So are we at another step that came through?
Yes. So it was know yourself and know your value, and then know your trust, and using your imagination or your intuition to kind of tap into your client's energy field to discern what can I offer that will provide the most value to the client who needs me right now. And then you could even take that further and ask, like, where do they hang out? What do they need? What problem do they have that I have a solution to? And then the third thing that came through, there was out of this list, was to give value in all that you do. So the question you could ask here is, how can I give value in a bigger way? What's my next step? Right?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So see the pattern of how it's just taking space out to be present with, and then doing that inquiry within. That's tapping into your intuition and inner wisdom that's connected to everyone and everything who's also connected to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's that whole, so you were talking with the value piece. We have in our group something we talk about, doubling your value in half the time. So there's when we spend more time in our head versus in that space of intuition, oftentimes we can get it wrong. And I don't want to talk, I tend to talk in rights and wrongs, but like, if there's a piece of it that it's all part of the journey. And so if we're spending time in our head and we're struggling to get, because, we talk about like meditation and those types of things to give you more space for more breathing. When we have trouble making that shift or putting it all connecting it all together, there's a piece of this, I think, that other people around us can also help in those steps.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I say is there's not one way for everyone, and there's not one way for anyone. So what works for you today may be different than what works for you tomorrow. So it is possible. And starting to ask those questions of what more is possible. Can I double my value in half the time? I, in the past, have looked at things as a finish line. Like, once I've arrived, like, okay, here's what I have to offer. Who wants it? But it's more of a journey. And as you get to that space, and there's more.
Yeah. Yes. I love all of that. And the thing that jumps out at me is the question, what more is possible? Can I double my value in half the time? That's such a powerful question. And if you just put a how in front of that, how can I? How can I, add more value in half the time? That would be a really powerful question to be present with. And I want to point out, and I love that you brought up that there's no one way for everyone, because a lot of people think of taking that time to be present might have to look like sitting down on a meditation pillow and, chanting Om, or, sitting in the silence, which sometimes can be really uncomfortable. And specifically for trauma survivors, that might not be the best way. Some people have a really hard time just closing their eyes for period, let alone for 5 minutes, right? So for people who are in that space, it might look like going for a walk without listening to a podcast or without listening to an audiobook, and just being present to the experience of hearing the birds sing and feeling your feet land on the earth, right? And in those moments, or as you said earlier, taking a shower, just being present with feeling the water, land on your body and dance across your skin. And in those moments, you're being present. And those are the moments often where the most powerful answers, the space is opened up for those to flow in.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just, and that's intuition. Like, it's that simple. It's not this big mystical thing, that people want to make it out to be. It's very simple. It's very real. It's very grounded, everyday sort of experience. Yeah.
So that whole piece of learning, and actually intuition can be like a muscle, right?
Yes.
So learning to embrace the intuitive parts of ourself, that inner knowingness, learning to embrace that and build our next steps off of that. I would say for me, there comes a place where there's things that happen intuitively automatically now.
Yes.
And so as we get more comfortable in taking those steps together and really working through what we believe to be next steps, part of the beauty of that, of not having one way, and that whole finish line, is that we can find our way, and intuitively we can be guided towards it. One of the things that I talk about with the women I work with is take one step. We're so busy and we multitask, but if we're heading towards something that's really important, taking that one step, and then once you get to the other side of it, celebrate, see what that looks like, what it feels like, because the view changes. And as we do more intuitively, to really just look for the evidence. When you say about how sometimes it's not comfortable for us to sit quietly, yes, you totally spoke to me. That can be a real challenge. And sometimes it's white noise, whether we have music playing or podcast, and then as we start to sit more quietly, knowing that the answers are within us instead of always looking to other people. So it's like that, everything in balance, right?
Yes. Yes. It goes back to that picture of being and doing and finding your place in the center of those. Maybe not every waking moment, right? But you're at least doing this weaving through and always finding your place back to the center during that process, right? And so we can add to our list here: breathe, ask, allow, trust, act, and celebrate. I love that you add celebrate at the end. Super, super important, even for just wiring the brain, and allowing the brain to build that muscle to accept success in our lives, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a process. It's a process. It's a journey. It's a lifelong, it never ends, right? Even
Mhm.
people who get to a point of, I once even heard, I guess the term over there is guru from another country who's very well respected and reverend and has loads of people across the globe that are volunteers for this person who is capable of great things.
Mhm.
Even say that as a enlightened being, or at peace, or at least people perceive this person to be an enlightened being, there is still that internal chatter within him. It's
Oh,
always there. It's just a matter of whether or not we can master it instead of allowing it to
to
master us.
master us.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because you look at people that are more peaceful and you think that everything is more peaceful.
Mm. Yeah.
Wow. That's a gift right there.
Yeah. It's like just being able to see it as a movie screen that's playing inside and not
Mhm.
identifying with the thoughts that you have, right? Like you
Mhm.
don't have to buy into those stories. You can just see them as thoughts that are floating by and be
Mhm.
in an observing state of them.
Mhm.
And then go back to breathe, ask, allow, trust, act, and celebrate.
Celebrate. Yeah, because that whole, you talked a little bit about like the rewiring. And
Mhm.
if we can, when we rewire and celebrate and actually verbally celebrating with others, makes huge steps in the rewiring process because it engages different parts.
Yes.
And we know that whatever your brain can visualize, it doesn't recognize the difference between whether it happened in real life or not.
Yeah.
And so as we celebrate and have those pictures and have that enthusiasm, the energy, and also the memory of other people celebrating with us, it
Mm.
really does speed up the process. Again, we can talk about doubling your value in half the time. That
Yeah.
simple act of celebrating does help to double your growth process.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the next time you get in a situation that is the opposite of, or the same situation that you were just celebrating, your brain then can go more quickly to what you liked about it and how to recreate it in a different way.
Yes. Yes. Amazing. I love that. And so, yeah, that was that all of that leads into the step 4 that came through, which is community and a cause, right?
Yes.
This community piece, like
Yes.
you can try to do it by yourself,
Mhm.
but if you want to get fast tracked
Mhm.
to the service that you're here to provide, community is so important.
It really is.
Needs to be a piece of it. Yeah.
Well, and
Mhm.
it's that piece where that community where we can put a hand out to help others. People will look at you and say, Jodi, I really love how you do X, or I love how you do Y, because that's one of the practices that we do when people are just starting to figure out what their value is. Look at what people compliment you on. Look at when, and we don't, it sometimes takes longer to capture those because we let them go quickly. But when somebody says, I can't believe you do this, or this is so natural for you, or I wish I was more like, and so that's some of the areas that you can start to see where your value is.
Yeah.
And that's that whole piece of standing out. You already stand out. It's
Mm.
just a matter of identifying and claiming those parts and taking more steps in those directions.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
that act piece, which requires, let's be honest, a ton of trust. Like,
Yes.
let's be honest, it can be scary, right? Especially
Yes.
if you're putting yourself out to a large community, it can be scary. But that's where you have to put faith over fear
Oh, I love that.
and courage over fear, right?
Oh,
So like
yes.
you can just let that be your motto, courage and faith over fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you'll start to get feedback from the universe, from your environment. And even when you start to tap in and ask those powerful questions,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people will get frustrated because they're like, okay, but I asked the question and nothing comes. I don't get anything. I don't receive anything. That's okay. That's okay. It's the energy of the asking
Mm-hmm.
and the energy of being present that shifts things sometimes automatically. And you might, if you pay attention, you'll start to notice, okay, I asked this question maybe a day ago or 3 days ago. And here I am at this place where this conversation is happening around me that's providing me the answer. And it like, it kicks off and is like a catalyst to some inspiration that I'm just now having.
Yes.
Or you're out on that walk being present. So maybe in that moment of asking, there's an attachment to having the answer right now. And if you can just let go of that attachment, and maybe you're out on your walk or whatever it is, in your shower, that inspiration just pops in.
Yes.
And when you get that inspiration or that intuitive hit, your answer is coming. And if you can keep a log or a journal of those times, that also will build your muscle. It'll build your belief muscle. It'll build your trust muscle, because you'll start to be able to have some valid documentation of like, okay, I asked, I received, I asked, I received. And I would be asking myself at the end of the day, how is the universe supporting me? How is the universe, how is life happening for me today? And I put that in a journal every single night. And, because again, that plays a role in wiring the mind to be looking for it, to be expecting it, and to be aware of it and present with it and seeing it. Yeah.
I will confess that I am not good at journaling, but just this week, it has come to my attention how valuable, as we talk about value, journaling is, because as we go through this journey, and as the pace can pick up, we tend to forget where we used to be. And that was one of the things that I've really noticed this week is I don't want to forget where I used to be. I'm grateful for everything that has happened.
Pardon me.
Oh no, that's okay.
My coffee.
But there's a part of this, like gratitude. We talk about gratitude and being such a key part. And when you're saying, like, when people say the answer hasn't come to me just yet, being grateful, because when it does, I was just in a group last night, and my energy was pretty low, but I've learned to become grateful for that, because oftentimes for me, when my energy is low, a breakthrough is coming right behind it, not necessarily within 12 hours, but it can be within 12 to 72 hours.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just posted a meme to a group yesterday that had some sort of, let's see if I can draw it out really quick. And it said, "You are not a machine." And it had a graph like this.
Oh, I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. It was like, you are not a machine. And it had on this, it said, your best, your best, your best, your best. Like, you're always doing your best, but your best isn't always going to be just a straight across line. It's up and down. It's ebb and flow. That's life. That literally is life. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's just connecting when we're talking about standing out for clients, creating, because one of the things we do with Sisters Rock and Courage is help women achieve financial independence, create a business they love, spread hope, and achieve financial independence. Yes. And so there's a piece of that where sometimes we can be quite shy and say, oh, shucks, anybody can do it. When you draw those dots, so those are where those dots go. There are people whose dots don't get to that same spot.
Yeah.
And that's that whole community piece, knowing that we have value, and not just that we have value, but really supporting and encouraging each other. Because when we all stand out, when we stand in our power, stand up for our purpose, we are standing out for our clients. And all of us serve a little piece of this. When we get clear with what's unique and special to us, and when we listen, trust, follow our intuition to become who we're supposed to be, we don't compete with anybody at all.
Love it. Mic drop.
I know, right?
So good.
There is no competition. And so often we're looking at other women saying, I wish I could do that, or why can't I be better at that? They're supposed to be better at that. And I'm supposed to be better at the piece that I'm better at. And so there is no, we do it. We were teasing earlier today. I said it takes a village. When we come together as a village, we are unstoppable. And so the whole standout piece we think takes effort. It's actually a natural evolution for who we are.
Yeah.
When we step into it.
Yeah.
You have to step in to stand out. Go ahead.
Yes. Step into yourself, right? It goes back to that number one piece, like know yourself and know your value. It's it's less of like aspiring towards being this thing and more of coming home to what you already are.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a mic drop.
Yes.
And finding the people that will support and encourage.
Yes.
And even we talk about like guide you, like that's a piece of it, like guiding you to come home to who you are. And then I love the one where I talk about a Sherpa. For people that climb those big tall mountains, they have people that have animals that take all of your, I call it junk, it's not junk. It's everything you need to climb the mountain. But they're in our life, we are climbing a mountain. And we do need Sherpas to help carry the stuff that we need along the way, but we don't need to carry it all ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of it we can just let go. Some of it we can just shed as we climb, right?
That amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And and going back to that piece of there's no competition, I would just say like, just, I like to think of it, and I think this was Wayne Dyer's concept of not really comparing yourself to anybody else, but comparing yourself to the you of yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can I be a little bit better today than I was yesterday? And I don't feel like better is necessarily the right word, maybe a more true version of myself.
We talked on Monday about becoming a more powerful version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know power can frighten people sometimes, but that's where the magic is. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at it from that perspective of seeing that, okay, Barbara's best version of Barbara or most powerful version of Barbara and Jodi's most powerful version of Jodi could actually provide the same services, even not that that's what we do, but I'm saying in the world of no competition,
yes,
and still have ample clientele and ample, there's no scarcity there, because Barbara's energy is going to resonate with the people who are meant to resonate with her and vice versa. And your story is different than mine. And, some people want a certain type of personality and a certain type of energy. There really truly is no competition. If you just feel into that, everything is ultimately, orchestrated at some level that's beyond our current comprehension, I believe, that it's all in divine order. It's
absolutely
all that it's supposed to and that it needs to.
So Kristen is listening with us, and she was talking about it's easy for us to forget the win. Celebrating and even small things helps our brain use the win as evidence for the next time.
Yes.
It is that whole piece of celebrating the wins. And when we come together to celebrate them, that's where we get stronger also.
Yes.
Because everybody has wins. I know sometimes when we come together in group, somebody will be like, well, I don't know what my wins are for this week. And so you start thinking back through, but that's the other thing that I like when you're working in community is where somebody can hold that space and ask the powerful question. And when everybody sits quietly within that question. So I will say to the folks that are listening, watching, like, what is the next step that you can take to be closer to in your power? Like, is there something that that you feel is holding you back? And what would the power step be to be able to move past that, to come into this new you?
And can you put courage and faith over fear in the process?
Yes, because especially for those of us as trauma survivors, look at everything we gained coming through that situation. We know that we have everything that we need. So can you put courage and faith
over fear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Over fear.
Yeah. And sometimes I experience the same thing in my groups, that sometimes it's really hard for people to find their win, especially initially. And sometimes it's as simple as celebrating the fact that you got out of bed that day. For some people, it's that, celebrating the fact that you took a shower. It doesn't always have, so just pointing out that it doesn't always have to look like some big grand thing. You know what I mean? If you're honing it in specifically to business, if you got up and checked your email, if you, again, pointing back to those needle movers, if you, even just put your ideas on paper, maybe you didn't get any further than that, but that's still a win, right? Still something to celebrate. Yeah.
I have a silly one that I celebrate now because I used to get triggered in
Mhm.
certain situations. And now when that situation happens, I much more quickly go back to, I now apologize. And then, because it's just such a funny thing, because it has sped up the process. To me, apologizing now is a celebration. It speeds up the process of not putting more energy in that negative space. And
Int-
so, yeah, like sometimes we feel like, okay, they win, I lost. It's not that at all. I'm winning.
yeah.
Because now it's a part of me that is saying, you know what, I honor that more powerful version of myself. And I don't want, it's not to say that it kind of like you were saying with the gentleman that lived the enlightened level, that the thoughts still come
Yes.
and we can still honor them, but we can honor them by not adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do we want to focus and what do we want more of in our life?
Yes, absolutely. And seeing those thoughts is just a story. It's just a story the mind
Mhm.
is telling. It doesn't make it true. It's not
Yeah.
even you. It's just a thought. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
seeing the things that, going back to the winning or losing, like what makes anything a win or a loss? Your thoughts about it,
That's it.
right? What
Mhm.
makes anything good or bad? Your
Mhm.
perception. Right?
Exactly.
If it's good to 20 people and it's bad to 20 people, which one is it?
Yes.
The perception of the perceiver.
Yes.
So if you can just see it as just that, right? And then see those adverse experiences as something that, like, what if every experience that we've ever had were divinely orchestrated to bring us more into our power?
I believe it is.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
And both of us have not had an easy path in life, but I do believe that everything that happened for me, yeah, that was the punchline.
Yes.
That everything that happened actually happened for me, because I
Yeah.
will tell you, like, there are some circumstances that happened to me, and then I went out and created a whole lot more.
Yes.
So all of that, to be able to have that, I call it a grace space, to say that, you know what, this was for my good.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it at the time. There was a lot, we both have done a lot of work behind the scenes to really get to this space. And this is a great time to offer to women. I will personally, I haven't offered this before, I offered it yesterday. If you're watching this video and you want to explore this more, just reach out and DM me. It's just that simple. We can have this conversation. There can be more to life. Jodi, I know you're very giving also with the intuitive business coach. So I don't want to speak for you. We'll put some information down below. This is completely no pressure. This is something that we found for ourselves, and we want to continue to help other women to put a hand out and say, join us. It's just a great space to be able to get to a point in life. I mean, you've seen in some of my other videos, I have trauma triggers, I have migraines, but I'm really working through a place of not having that control my life anymore.
Yes.
So what are the things that are controlling our lives, that are holding us back, that are keeping us from really from creating our value, putting it out there and getting clients? That's what this conversation has been about. So Jodi, I know, like, our time went so quickly. Is there,
I can't believe it.
like, holy moly, is there anything else that you would like to say? And again, we'll put links down below, but women, as you're watching this, do reach out to us. That's what we're here for. That's why we came together today to talk to you.
Which goes back to that community, right? And a cause. And we both stand for that cause of women rocking courage.
Yeah.
And so a few things that I would like to say. First, I would like to affirm Barbara. I want to thank you for creating this space. Thank you for creating Sisters Rocking Courage. And I also just want to point out that I have been in the experience of your work, and I can verify that Barbara is so magnificent at what she does. And so if you're thinking about reaching out, Barbara is very good at creating a safe space to be heard. She's very conscientious and present. And I'm so honored to just be a colleague of yours. The last thing that I would like to say, you're free to reach out to me as well. we both stand for that cause, but I would like to just leave with this question. What would become available to you from here on out if you were able to put courage over fear when it comes to standing out, being seen, and being heard?
That's a powerful question, and we will put that down below to continue the conversation.
Yes.
I also just wanted to acknowledge Brenny from Switzerland has also joined us. So yeah, this conversation isn't just a local conversation. I know you're in the central time zone out there in one of them M states.
K-State.
Oh, okay, you're in Kansas. Ah, right. And I'm over here in Maryland. So yeah, and so we have somebody in South Carolina and from Switzerland. So it is a community that no matter where we live, that we are all together working towards the same thing. And I can say the same for you, Jodi. We just have some fantastic conversations. And as we move forward, we're really strengthening each other. And I just value you so much because, as we use that word value, you have increased my value too. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And thank you. And so to the women who are listening, come join us because it's awesome.
It is. It really is. And it's amazing when you come together in community, you can double your value. And half the time you really can, because others can see what we can't see. We hold up mirrors to each other, and yeah, in that safe space that allows us to grow. Again, it sounds a little bit like a love fest, but it really is. So we will be back. Stay tuned for Sisters Rocking Courage on Tuesdays at 10 Eastern. And then we've got a big surprise coming up in October. So stay tuned on Sisters Rocking Courage. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, nope, it's a page right now. We're getting ready to launch the group. If you haven't joined it, please follow, like, whatever you have to do for that. And then Jodi will put your information down below too, because you're working on putting a new program together also, I think.
Yeah, I have a program that helps women to actually come into a place of presence. And so it builds that muscle first for the self. And then if you choose to, you can graduate as a certified intuitive life coach. So
yay, that's beautiful. Yeah. And we can also say Elka from Germany is also with us too. So I know, awesome. So it's fun. Alrighty, so until next time, folks, ladies, if you have any questions or comments, pop them down below and we will definitely continue the conversation.
Yes.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.